Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim, and Chris. On today's Roland Garros Day 3 catch-up,
Sinner and Sabalenka cruise, but Pegula exits early.
Medvedev stunned in 5 for another round 1 slam exit.
And Naomi Osaka debuts a golden dress as she progresses to round 2.
Chris, today is the 26th of May, and we are here to catch up on Roland Garros Day 3 at Tennis Weekly HQ. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about some of the leading contenders all kicking off their Paris campaigns. Jannik Sinner, Aryna Sabalenka, and Coco Gauff all starting, all coming through with ease. We're going to be talking about all of their matches over the course of the episode. There was some late night drama that we are coming hot off the back of. Fourth seed in the men's draw, Felix Auger-Aliassime, surviving just about to win through to round 2. But Jessica Pegula is out. The fifth seed is out in round 1 to Kimberley Birrell. A big shock there. We will be getting into that in the second half. We're also going to be talking about Daniil Medvedev's day to forget with a 5-set loss to Adam Walton. That's his fourth round 1 Grand Slam loss in the last 6 Grand Slams. We're going to be unpacking that very, very soon. We're also going to be talking about Naomi Osaka's golden dress, which has caused some quite different opinions at Tennis Weekly HQ. And we're going to be looking ahead to day 4 and the start of the second round with Iga Świątek and Novak Djokovic in action. Chris, you are back in the hot seat. I have to, I think, start every episode at the moment by talking about the weather. I mean,
A
that's
temperature
what Brits,
check is what we're
that
doing.
is what Brits do. We just have to talk about the weather and the temperature every opportunity. It has not relented at all in the UK and in London. How are you doing? Because you have been on site for all of the day.
I mean, in Paris, it's also very warm. I think I'm better than you in the heat. I was thinking about this yesterday, Joel. I think Casper Ruud is probably the only person who, well, you are worse than he is in the heat. I mean,
I'm not even going to argue that case. Actually, I am just about surviving. I've actually upgraded my fan. I had a small handheld fan for the first couple of episodes, but because it was just not doing the business, I've now had to bring in like the big fan, the table fan,
oh wow.
which is now kind of
Listeners,
blowing.
we apologize if you can hear that. I think maybe next time we should try and get you like the ice towels. Maybe we can prepare a few
Well,
of
I'm
those.
upgrading. I'm upgrading. We're an aircon unit is on the way, so this journey through the Roland Garros draw is also being a journey through my air cooling systems.
Wow, well, things did get a bit cooler despite the action staying hot late at night because Jessica Pegula just came from that. Literally, have just been there watching her go out, which was quite a
Mm,
shock. But I mean, we had night session matches because Jannik Sinner wins so quickly, finished before the regular day session on Susan
that is
Longlong.
crazy.
It is
That is
crazy.
crazy. Yeah, and I mean the night sessions so far have been very, very entertaining. And you were at the Gael Monfils match from last night. Just before we get into all of the action from today, what was your, being in the stadium for that? Tell our listeners, what was that experience like?
It was a Frenchman's dream. I personally, not being French, it might not have been for me. People loved it. I think they really do appreciate him. I appreciate him. I think he has been appreciated a lot. So I'm probably kind of more on the same camp as you, Joel, that maybe we didn't need this one because, if you're getting bageled by Hugo Gaston, you probably aren't necessarily match fit for, the final slam. So I think it was a great event for a lot of people who really love him, but it is a tournament, and I think these sort of farewell tours need to end. I want match fit people playing in the best slots, and he is an entertainer. He did entertain, but I mean, for me, I prefer to bow out with grace, a la Federer, or
Okay,
that's the
okay.
only way I can put it, Joel.
We are getting like farewell toured out. I think it's probably speaks for the number of legends, that have been
Also,
created,
they're coming
particularly I
back. What
think
about this Serena
in the
comeback? That's
era.
still being talked
Yeah,
about. We
Camilla
thought
Georgie as well.
oh yes, another legend coming back. Well, she didn't do a farewell tour. She had to hop on a plane apparently to escape her taxes to Argentina. So that was a bit different. But I mean, I didn't think Camilla Georgie would be coming up so soon on the
That's true.
podcast,
Okay,
Joel.
right. Well, let's move on and talk about already a tennis bona fide legend, Jannik Sinner. is through. He was in the night session today, defeated Clement Tabur 6-1, 6-3, 6-4. He now has 30 consecutive wins since the start of Indian Wells. Incredible achievement in itself. Chris, you were there for this match. The scoreline looked pretty straightforward, but actually watching it on TV, I was pretty impressed with the level that Tabur brought to the court and how I think he kept up with Jannik Sinner as good as he could.
I think he did. I think he really good showing for himself because that first set, 6-1, it looked pretty dire at one point in terms of what was going to happen. And I think, Jannik Sinner, I've been watching him very closely. I've been at pretty much all of his practice sessions during opening week, and he's looking so good. The night session, we don't really find out about how he's going to handle the heat. Joel, whether he's handling it better than you are or not, we'll have to wait and see. But given the form Jannik Sinner is in, I think it was actually a really good effort because being a wild card, playing against someone who is that good, that could have gone a really different direction. So a solid innings for him. I think he's made a good name for himself with the
Who
French
was the
crowd.
crowd supporting?
I mean, obviously, Clement. I mean, they will support anyone French in any situation. And I mean, I felt a bit bad for Gaston, yesterday, not to go back to the night session match, but you're in front of your
It was a bit of the
home.
library, it sounded like, when he was winning the points.
I know, and you just think he's in front of his home crowd, and nobody wants him to win a point. But Jannik Sinner was also pretty popular. I think people were very pleased to see him. I think it's clear that no one really, apart from Novak Djokovic, gets a welcome like he does, apart from a Frenchman. And I mean, I loved watching Jannik Sinner play. I think it's just so easy it's looking, and he looks so at ease with this position that he's in. It was quite ominous though, Joel. I think we all predicted Sinner to win. I'm not changing that. And I think unless the day session gets the better of him, we're not changing that prediction at all.
I sort of feel like the tournament organizers are in a spot of the only way they can really spice up the Jannik Sinner run is put him in the day session, put him in second or third on Philippe Chatrier.
Third on. Well, Djokovic is in that
see
slot,
how he gets
Joel.
on. Well, exactly. And we'll get onto that when we look at the order of play for tomorrow. But just finally on Jannik Sinner, do you feel like if he does continually get the night slot, let's say during week one, when the temperatures are very hot during the day, do you think there might be conversations or murmurings that he's getting special treatment perhaps when he doesn't actually really need it because his tennis is just so good?
I think all of the top players have some sort of a deal where they have to play a night session. So if they are playing more than that, I think it tends to be because they've requested to. So time will tell if he is looking to stay in that slot. I think because of the nature of him being, the number one player right now, and we have no Alcaraz, if he wants it,
TV ratings are going to want him, sure.
Yeah, they'll want it. So there'll be some pressure there as well. So I don't think it would necessarily be a way to schedule for him to have an easier run. I think it's what the tournament might need and the French audience in prime might want. Having said that, though, I'm fascinated to see how he does in the heat in a tough clash. We might see something like round 3. It could be interesting to see. But I wouldn't be mad if he played the night session because I think you need star power there, or you need 2 Frenchmen.
Yeah, interesting. We'll have to all eyes, I think. I mean, the tennis is taking care of itself at the moment. I think all eyes are just on when is Jannik Sinner playing, because it's like the only person who can defeat him at the moment really is himself and his body, and a big part of that will be his scheduling. So yeah, all eyes
and
on
the heat,
Jannik
Joel,
Sinner
just like you. The
and
only
the
thing
heat.
that can defeat you is the heat as well.
I mean, one player that did succumb, to the heat partially, but also to his opponent was Daniil Medvedev, who lost in 5 sets today against Adam Walton, the Aussie wildcard, 6-2, 1-6, 6-1, 1-6, 6-4. Roller coaster of a scoreline that ended with Walton victorious. Daniil Medvedev has now gone out in round 1 of 4 of the last 6 Grand Slams. I personally thought he turned a corner at the Australian Open when he reached round 4. But I mean, what did you make of this performance, Chris? Because again, you were there at this match. And if you look at Medvedev's clay season in a nutshell, started with getting double bageled by Matteo Berrettini, pushed Jannik Sinner all the way in Rome, and now has ended his clay campaign to an Aussie wildcard who I looked at his preparation. He was playing hard court challenger tournaments out in Asia. How do you how do you even attempt to sum up this performance from Daniil Medvedev?
I mean, a roller coaster is also where you could describe his clay season, having been double bageled by Berrettini. He then went
Mm.
and took a set off Sinner, and now he's gone out to a player, as you said, he prepared on the hard courts of China to be here. He's much lower ranked than he is, and from a winning position at times. So it's not a good look for him. I think from his press that he did, he basically just says, you know what, I'm rubbish on clay, but I'll give it a go. And if I get some money and some points, great. It's kind of his vibe here. And I don't really think that speaks to him wanting to be here. So the question I have based on watching the performance is if he's not willing to, grind it out, I think the same was true against Norrie last year. I watched that one on court, winning position, ended up losing it. He's not committed to doing well in Paris. And I think that's my issue with it is there any point in him playing Roland Garros? I mean, he's lost in the first round 7 times. His career record is 10-10, which is quite crazy when you think about how good a player he is and how many matches he wins.
Mm.
It basically means that he's, winning as much as he's losing, which is very unusual for someone who's been world number one to have such a big sort of weakness in a slam. And for me, it's giving Casper Ruud on grass. If you don't really want to be there and you're not really motivated to do well, or at least kind of really give it a go, he just didn't want to be there. So I say, Joel,
It's
should he be playing Roland Garros, and why is he playing Roland Garros?
But is it a French Open thing? Because I would have agreed with you maybe a few seasons ago. But again, if you look at his Grand Slam activity, round one at the French Open last year, round one at Wimbledon, round one at the US Open, round four at the Australian Open, round one this year's French Open. Is there an issue that Daniil Medvedev now has with Grand Slams and best of 5 set tennis generally? Is it something to do with his playing style? Can he just not? Does it just not work for Grand Slams anymore, or do you think it is more of a kind of a mentality thing?
His mind was all over the place, is the only thing I can really say. I couldn't believe that he just absolutely wilted at the end of
Mm.
that match.
He was
And
going after his wife at one point.
I mean, that was the funniest thing, is actually the comments that he was making about saying he's hitting every line, and then he didn't hit a single line in the game before.
I think I heard also he said like his opponent was like the best mover on clay. It was picked up on the audio. So yeah, maybe he was a little bit. He definitely was a little bit distracted, I think, at times.
Yeah, he was. And I mean, it's classic Medvedev, really, isn't it? I mean, he does say a lot of things on court. I think it's a bit of a release for him, which I think is fine as long as it's kind of helping you get to a better spot. So I'm not necessarily looking forward to seeing him back on a clay court. But one comment I did love, I've just looked it up quickly, is that Daria Medvedeva said to her husband, it's hot for everybody. Everybody's suffering. You need to behave. And he goes, when I start finding the court, I'll start to behave.
Well, I
Just
mean,
having a domestic on court, I think it's
yeah.
she was having none of it though, and I mean, I guess he didn't have to behave because he didn't find the court in the end. So there's not much we can say about it at this point, apart
Mm.
from the fact that let's hope he can make it a few rounds deeper at Wimbledon.
Okay, let's move on and talk about the Brits because Jacob Fearnley and Cam Norrie were both in action today. Jacob Fearnley lost in straight sets to Juan Manuel Cerundolo, but the big story, sadly, is Cam Norrie had to retire mid-match against Vallejo. He was a set and a breakdown. He struggled with a rib injury. Now, we understand that he has dropped out more of a precaution for Wimbledon. He didn't want to exacerbate the injury ahead of his kind of grass court preparation. But just a word on this, Chris, because no British male into round two of Roland Garros. Things are not looking great. And if you take away, I guess, the sheen of a fit Jack Draper on the tour, there's not really much to get excited about at the moment.
It's tough, but I would say, kind of in Norrie's defense, he hasn't actually retired from an ATP Tour level or Grand Slam match before. So He has been always plugging away. He's so resilient. So this must be
Mm.
really serious. So it's quite abnormal for him. I think he would have had a good run here. I thought he'd have a deeper run. I think we have got a lot of hopes on Jack and Andy producing something on the grass. And yeah, I guess the state of men's tennis in the UK is that we're lacking a leader at the moment, I would say. And not that Norrie can't be that leader, but we haven't got that standout player. So all eyes will be on, Katie Bilton and Fran Jones to see if they can
Mm.
maybe, lift us into round three. Otherwise, the doubles guys will have to do it for us.
Well, one player, specifically Kim, had an eye on, and it looks like it could be a pretty decent prediction, I think, was 17-year-old Moise Kouame, who defeated Marin Cilic today, straight sets, 7-6, 6-2, 6-1 to reach the second round. I mean, 20-year age gap between the two of them. He becomes the first player born in 2009 to win a Grand Slam main draw match. He is actually, in fact, 6 years younger than Carlos Alcaraz, which is pretty crazy to think about. But I thought it was interesting given what we've seen from Monfils last night, and what we saw from Kouame today. I do think he is a big hope for the French, and to see the performances he's putting in already, I think it's very easy, I think, to get excited about him.
And it's very poetic, isn't it? One new star rises as
Mm,
one fades, one retires. I think that would be kind of wonderful if he had a bit of a run here. Kim has him going deep, which I think is very exciting. It was a hugely kind of mature performance. I mean, Cilic is not easy to break, and he made it look pretty easy in those last two sets to come through in three, which was not what many people were expecting
no.
at all. So very impressed by him, and it was very kind of an assured performance. I think you could be very nervous, but he was on so mature, and he really kind of was lifted by the crowd. He rose to the occasion.
Mm.
And I think that's one of the things that, the crowd can lift you. And I think they need a bit of French success because the French are dropping like flies, unfortunately, at this tournament, Joel. I think you blink and another French player has been eliminated. Muller on Chatrier didn't even make it into,
Yeah.
set three. That was a shame. We've
Mute's
had
out.
Mute's out as well. I mean, exactly. You blink and they're gone.
Mm.
And I think, they need a lift. We need a lift. The French need a lift, and the Brits need a lift.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to plot his progress. But as you say, I think one of the reasons he played so well was he just naturally lends himself to the crowd. And you can't necessarily say that, I think, about all French tennis players. Some of them are kind of paralyzed, I think, by the moment and the occasion.
Especially
For
in Paris, like Amelie
Yeah.
Mauresmo, that was a huge issue for her, right?
Exactly. So, yeah, very interested to see how he gets on. But we're going to take a quick break now. Do join us in the second half where we will be discussing all the women's action from day three at Roland Garros, including Sabalenka and Coco Gauff kicking off their campaigns and Naomi Osaka's golden outfit. Plus, we look ahead to day four with Novak Djokovic and Iga Świątek headlining the day session on Philippe Chatrier. So do not go anywhere. Welcome back to the Tennis Weekly podcast, and it's time now to look back on women's action from day three at Roland Garros. And Chris, we're going to start with two of the favourites, Aryna Sabalenka and Coco Gauff, both coming through in straight sets, relatively comfortable for both of them, but also at times you sensed there were some vulnerabilities there that we've been speaking about over the clay season. I mean, let's start with Coco Gauff because she was facing fellow American Taylor Townsend, straight set 6-4, 6-love, but did go down very, very early in that first set. I think her serve was broken, was 3-1 down. So yeah, not the best start from her.
Wasn't the best, and Taylor Townsend can play ball. We know that. She's a
Yeah.
great player. So prolific on the doubles court as well, and does like the big stage. I think she was a little bit frustrated with her performance because there was an opportunity for her to probably get a set of Coco Gauff today. Coco is so good at winning matches when she's not playing her best tennis, and she obviously got a lot better in that second set. But I mean, the double faults were coming. It was not necessarily a case that she made her defending champion status known. And Taylor Townsend wasn't at all intimidated by playing her really at the start of that match. So Coco got the win. she got stronger as it went on. And I think probably there are those nerves there when you are returning. You don't want to be, that statistic of a defending champion who went out in round one. So from a Coco Gauff perspective, I think she moves great. I think there are lots of positives. Not the cleanest match, but at the same time, Taylor Townsend is a very tricky round one draw, especially, she's your countrywoman, she's a friend, and she's such a good player. So job done for Coco.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. She spoke about afterwards that she was from Florida, and actually the conditions here, she said, this is nothing for me. This is not a hindrance to my playing ability. And I actually wonder if the conditions here might help her, in her title defense. Might help her, with her serve. Add a little bit more, add a little bit more pace, add a little bit more bounce to the ball. So yeah, I thought it was quite interesting that although
fighting
maybe
talk, isn't it?
Although maybe the heat might affect some players, it's gonna help other players, and maybe Coco Gauff is one of those players at the top of the list of the women's game that it could benefit.
I mean, that is interesting when you think about it. I mean, also from I think living in Florida at the moment is Aryna Sabalenka. I think she might have a base over there. That does make me think, though, they do handle the heat a bit differently, because I felt like with Sabalenka and watching that match, the temperature did affect her temperament slightly. I think she was really trying to not let, things get frustrated for her, because in case, it boiled over quite literally, because when it's like 39 degrees at court level, you really don't want to mentally let the frustrations get to you. You want to get off court quickly. So I think she did not love the condition. She made it a very good point afterwards to say to everybody, it's very hot out here. Make sure you're drinking water. It's no joke, basically. So very different sort of approaches. Yeah, for people who also, Florida residents in their own right. But I mean, Sabalenka did get it done. I think Bustos Monero was a bit patchy. Sabalenka was probably, could have gone up a few notches, but when she's on, she looked pretty brilliant, to be honest. And Bustos Monero, I mean, again, a tough opponent. She's beaten Coco Gauff this year, remember it? I think the United Cup. So some quite tough round one opponents for some of the top players.
Yeah, and I would just add on Sabalenka, I think if there was a worry, again, I think it's this feeling that she's not able to close out matches as clinically as she was doing in the past. I mean, she led 4-love in the first set, served for it at 5-3, and then she was similarly serving for the match at 5-1 in the second set. So I think if there is something for her to work on, it's just being more ruthless, I think, when she does get those leads, because we've seen, times this season against Baptiste when she had all those match points, the back in a final at the Australian Open, there've been moments where she has, she's clutched defeat from the jaws of victory. And I wasn't necessarily afraid, that was going to happen against Bustos Monero, but I still think there was a little inkling there that she's not completely comfortable at the moment in just finishing things off.
There were moments, at 5-4 when she broke, having been way ahead, that you did think, actually, she's opened the door here and it could get interesting. That's why I do think she was really trying to stay level-headed in those moments. It was about winning the match, moving on to the next one. I think you're completely right with that maybe the rush to get it done doesn't always help her. You've got to be patient and not necessarily change how you're playing. You can't finish a match because you want to finish it. And sometimes that final point can be the hardest point, and often is the hardest point to win. But she did win it today. And Joel, I have to say, she got to wear her dress. She did finally get to debut it for herself on a big court, as opposed to, an outside court as it had already debuted.
That's very true.
But
very
true. Really liked it. I thought she looked great in it. And it's got this sort of red, almost like a swimsuit underneath. So it's quite an interesting one. Okay. And I mean, fashion was a talking point today, wasn't it, Joel?
Yeah, I was going to say, well, talking of dresses, we need to talk about Naomi Osaka.
We'll have to get Kim's opinion too, so we're not necessarily the dress experts, are we?
Yes. We need to talk about her match against Laura Siegemund. Osaka won in straight sets, 6-3, 7-6. Did really, really well to stop that match going to a third set. But before we talk about the tennis, we need to talk about the dress that she came out in. She came out in
a moment, I was going to say, Joel, because I was there and I heard that she was going to do something, so I was eagle-eyed. I took my seat very early.
Do you feel like I feel like a lot of kind of warm-ups, like people don't arrive for the warm-ups,
It
Do
was
you feel
pretty
like with
empty.
the okay, was it still empty? I was just wondering, like, do people know that do people sense this as a moment? Oh my god, Osaka's coming on court. What is
Hmm.
she gonna wear? And therefore they get to the match early.
I mean, I did,
Okay.
but no one else did. The media box was pretty much completely empty, and I kind of thought more people would be there because it's a bit of an opportunity to see something. It's a talking point, it's a story to write. But I
Hmm.
mean, it was pretty barren, I've got to be honest. And maybe because she's done it a few times
Oh.
now, the interest has dwindled slightly. But it could also be because other things were happening in the media room. You never know. But Joel, tell us about some of the things we need to know about this outfit. We can describe it. She came out almost in like
Yes.
it was like an all black um
Yeah.
long gown.
I'm going to be very specific and use words from the news article
Oh
I have
yes.
lifted here because I don't want to get this wrong. But she came out in a black corset and cascading skirt designed by couturier Kevin Germanier.
Mm.
And then afterwards, she played in a night designed layered gold dress. And for me, this was the best bit. It was striped with sequins. And the dress used upcycled materials, which Germanier specializes in. So that's what we got. Listeners, if you want to go have a look, just search Naomi Osaka golden dress to see for yourself. But Chris, where does this rank for you in Naomi Osaka outfits? I keep thinking about the octopus outfit and how this compares. Perhaps a little bit more elegant, a little bit more classy. I actually think for me, this is top of the list.
I would say top of the list. I think it's super nice. I think it looked lovely on court.
Mm.
When she came out and then she sort of took off the corset and revealed the gold, it was a bit like a magician's assistant. You know, when they do a speed change, it was quite impressive actually. A bit of an optical illusion that was under there. Um, I mean, I liked it. She did walk onto court and then she stood as they did the coin toss in this cascading skirt, as you described it so eloquently, Joel. And Lara Sigmund was just completely just getting on with her business. She was very unimpressed, I think, by the whole thing. And I think didn't mince her words, did she, when it came to the post match?
No, no, she didn't. And I'm going to be honest. I've been all friendly and nicey about Osaka's dresses on court, but I actually side with Laura Sigmund. I feel like when it
What did
comes
she
to
say though? Tell me.
okay, so she said, and she's quoted, "I honestly don't care. I'm here to play tennis, not to do a fashion show." And I completely agree with Laura Siegman. I think we talk too much at the moment about Naomi Osaka's fashion sense on the tennis court as opposed to her play on the tennis court. I would like to get back to talking about how good Naomi Osaka, the athlete, is as opposed to the fashion designer. And this was a pretty scrappy match, towards the end. As I said, I think she did great
You had it on
to.
upset alert, Joel.
I did,
So
and
she did do pretty well then to close it out in
she
two.
did. I mean, Siegmund is such a frustrating player to play against. I mean, she was getting under the skin of Osaka as well, particularly with the amount of time she was taking before she was serving. Osaka said to her box, she said it takes about 20 minutes for her to serve after one ball, to serve one ball, sorry. So I think Osaka did well to kind of stay composed, didn't let the Siegmund antics get to her. But I wouldn't necessarily say it was flawless tennis. She did show glimpses of that, I think, in the first set. But I just wish maybe her tennis was as good as the outfits that she's coming onto the court in.
I mean, if she were to win the slam, would your opinion change?
My
Probably.
my opinion would change, but again, I'm just I'm still waiting. I think for that moment at Grand Slams.
I think you don't
Um,
have to win everything to kind of have a fashion moment. I think
okay.
people like it. I think it's entertainment. She said it's the only time she really feels like she's entertaining people is in the walkout. I'm probably on the side of things where I think it's fun. I do think the hype is a bit wild, and I think that she obviously really loves it. Um, and that's great. But I think obviously then not everyone will share that opinion. I'm sure she understands that.
Mm.
But one thing I was going to say was interesting, Joel, about it, not to go on too much about it, but she did want to make the point. She went to Threads and said that just clarifying, I feel it's important to note that Nike is the one who makes my match dresses and kits. Those have never been a collaboration. The designers work around pre-existing designs, so outside of Nike. So the actual dress is made by Nike, and then it's not at all a collaboration with Nike for the bits that she wears around it, it would seem. So that's kind of strange because Nike are basically, they are giving her a custom kit, I guess, but at
Yeah.
the same time, she is the one who's really pushing to do more around it. And I think her at the Met Gala makes perfect sense. I think these are nice. I think it's fun. Um, and I think she's doing something for herself and for fashion people. And I enjoy it to an extent, but I just think, as you say, I like round two for Osaka more when we come,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It is interesting though, just to talk about the different arrangements players have because it's completely different. I
we
think to
like
the
the
arrangement
contracts. Sabalenka
Sabalenka
can't get
has.
custom,
Yeah,
Osaka gets custom, and
yeah.
then she
What's
gets
going
another
on?
designer on
What's
top.
going on?
So
Well, I mean, one player who is not going to be bothered. Well, it's going to be sad they're not going to be able to join Sabalenka and Osaka in round two is Jessica Pegula, who lost to Kimberley Birrell late on today. 1-6, 6-3, 6-3 to Burrell. Pegula out in round one of a Grand Slam. She has been to the semi-finals at the Australian Open and the US Open in the last two Grand Slams. So quite a big shock here. Chris, you were there for the end of this match. What was going on here? Because I did not have this on upset alert at all.
you didn't. You thought she was taking out Sabalenka. I said
I
that
know, I
was
went that far. I
You
went that
really
far.
did. And I like the fact you don't always bring that stuff up, Joel, because I'm here to remind you at every possible point.
Mm.
Burrell was great. She really was hitting the ball hard. She's basically playing Jessica Pegula at her exact own game and outplaying her. So that was very surprising to me. Pegula didn't play too badly, but I really thought she would push on and get that second set. I was really surprised she didn't get it done in two. So Pegula is out. I think there are more and more gaps in the draw.
Mm.
And one player we also won't be seeing is Lois Brasson, last year's semi-finalist, out to Kalinskaya in very quick fashion. Um, I mean, did we see it coming this one? I think we did, unfortunately. I mean, Kalinskaya
Yeah.
is a great player, but Joel, one question to ask. Why is it so hard for these breakout like runs and stars who do this to back it up a year later? We see it with those who win, those who make semi-finals, those who kind of break through. Why don't we really hear from them again afterwards?
I think there are multiple reasons. I think in Lois Boisson's case, she's just been very injury prone. She didn't have the build up that she would have wanted. You could see that in the outpouring of emotion in her interview afterwards. I mean, she looked physically great on the tennis court, but she hadn't got the tennis underneath her really to go into this feeling confident. So I think from Boisson's perspective, it wasn't necessarily a big surprise. It is obviously sad when these moments happen because she's going to drop more than 100 places in the rankings. So really kind of going back to zero, working her way up to being in the top 100 again. But I think to me, generally, it's all about, maybe the draw that you get. No two draws are the same, no two pathways are the same. And it can very much change from one year to the next. And I think, last year, the draw certainly opened up for her. She's feeling more inspired. Perhaps she was a lot more of an unknown as well. I mean, we didn't really know her going into the tournament, but here, a bit more of a known entity. Maybe she was feeling the pressure a bit more. Again, I think you can tell that by the emotions that she was feeling afterwards. So it's a different context that she was playing in, and I think that was, that's a big reason why we don't necessarily see these players have a big breakout moment, then able to repeat it. She also played Kalinskaya, who is a great player on her day, can be a little bit streaky, but she's a very smooth operator and was able to just kind of take away all of that, context and just get on with the job at hand.
Yeah, and I mean, it's sad to see because there's a lot of hype. There's been a lot of
Mm.
press attention for her about this. Doesn't take anything away from what people achieve when they do have that moment, and you just have to hope that they can rekindle that magic again. But I mean, we've got to look at day four, don't we, Joel?
We do indeed, because we have Iga Świątek and Novak Djokovic in action in the day session
I mean, I've got
on
to,
Philippe
before I've said let's have a
Chatrier.
look, but I've got to interrupt you.
Okay.
Do the schedulers at Roland Garros even talk about when they're going to schedule Iga Świątek? Because she is almost a dead cert for that opening slot every single time. What's your take on this? Is she on the committee or how is this happening?
I to be honest, I think round two is fair enough. I think maybe they're saving it because maybe they're thinking she's going to face Ostapenko in round three, and maybe
Ooh,
they
night
will
session? No,
give
never.
maybe they'll give her a bit more of a prime time slot. But there might be some players that some players want the evening slot. Some people players probably want to just get on with their business.
She wants the morning. Djokovic, did he want this slot? I thought this was a dead cert for another night
That
session
was
with against a French player in
I think
Breuer.
that is the biggest surprise to me. Royer Djokovic third on, a Frenchman. The temperatures again are going to be sweltering. Yeah, what do you think Djokovic makes of this? Do you think I can't see him requesting the third match on Chatrier.
I don't think that Mačák Zverev really makes sense unless there is this sort of formula of having to rotate things. Sure, it's going to be an entertaining clash. It could be tough, but people come to see French names and big names in the evening slot. So I'm surprised that Prime sort of okayed this one. But I guess they do have to share the evening slot amongst people. And maybe people's preference is to get stuff done, go home. He has a family. He doesn't always want to be up late. That also it can schedule you out of a tournament. He's had that before at the French Open. So you have to play in the heat. He'll have to play in the heat at some point. So maybe he's just trying to get it done now whilst he's fresher. It might make more sense to do round two than round four or round three if the heat does stick around. But I mean, there's plenty of other good matches. Unfortunately, Alexander Blok should have to leave the tournament. He actually injured himself in a warm-up with Fonseca, a practice session. So Diminar goes through. Weirdly, they put Kachanov on Susan Longlong, who's been on there twice now. I would have thought they would have put on, Rublev or someone a bit more known.
I would have put Fonseca Prismic on. I think that would have been a great spotlight for young players. Give them the spotlight is what I would have said. I'm looking at Paulini Sierra as well. I wonder if Sierra could cause an upset there, perhaps. And I noticed Casper Ruud is last on Suzanne Lonlen. I assume he's just hoping
that's a
all
request.
the matches before
Surely
him,
that's a request.
all the matches before him just go as long as possible, so he doesn't have to play.
He'll finish when Felix did after
heat.
the night session.
Right, we're going to wrap up our Roland Garros Day 3 catch up here at Tennis Weekly HQ. We hope you've enjoyed the ride with us. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss a moment of action from Paris, where we will be producing daily episodes across the fortnight. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and all your favorite podcasting platforms out there. And if you love what you're hearing, be sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, as well as hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube.
And I'm here in Paris at Roland Garros for the first week. So if you'd like to see what I'm getting up to or see some of the behind the scenes of what is going on our social pages, you can check that out on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and X. The handle for all of those is Tennis Weekly Pod. And if you have a question for us, I mean, we don't do mailbags during Grand Slams, but if there is a question, we would love to address it. And that's tennisweeklypod@gmail.com or visit our website, tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we'll be back on Wednesday for our Roland Garros Day 4 catch-up, the beginning of round 2. But until then, it's goodbye from Chris.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time on Tennis Weekly.